Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with the next video in the countdown towards the resumption of the 2020 Candidates Tournament, which was cut short back in March because of the corona pandemic threat. We're counting down towards the great event on Chess to Impress by looking at the earlier 29 candidate cycles in the history of the official World Championship. And this is episode number 8. It started back in 1883, a very long time ago, when Zukertort and Steinitz finished in the first two places of the London tournament, and that led to the first official World Championship match 3 years later between these two players. Steinitz qualified for another World Championship match in St. Petersburg 1895-1896, where he gained the right to challenge world champion Lasker for a rematch. Netherlands 1938 was won by Paul Keres from Estonia. He never got a World Championship match because of World War II. Budapest and Moscow 1950 was the first official candidates tournament, and it was won by David Bronstein. Vasily Smyslov won 2 candidate cycles in Zurich 1953 and in Amsterdam 1956. And Misha Tal qualified for the World Championship match in Yugoslavia 1959. Tigran Petrosyan won the candidates tournament in Curaçao 1962, and it is there in red because that is what this video is about. We're going to look at a game from that event later. Then the candidates tournament was replaced by candidate matches, and Boris Spassky won the first 2 cycles in 1965 and 1968. Bobby Fischer won the next cycle and qualified to play the match of the century in 1972 against Boris Spassky. Anatoly Karpov beat Viktor Korchnoi in Moscow 1974 and gained the right to challenge world champion Bobby Fischer. Fischer decided not to defend his title and Karpov became world champion. Viktor Korchnoi won the next 2 cycles and lost both times to Karpov in a world championship match. And Garry Kasparov came on the scene by qualifying in 1984. He became world champion a year later. Karpov won 2 cycles, and then it was Nigel Short's turn. He beat Karpov in the semi-finals and Timman in the finals to qualify to play Kasparov. Anand was Kasparov's next opponent, and it should have been Alexei Shirov, who beat Kramnik in Cazorla 1998, but he never got a match. Kramnik did and became the 14th world champion. Peter Leko was Kramnik's next challenger by winning the candidates event in Dortmund 2002, and in Elista 2007 there was a World Championship tournament. 4 players qualified for that: Aronian, Gelfand, Grishuk and Leko. Anand became world champion and defended his title against Topalov, Gelfand and Carlsen, who beat Anand to become the 16th world champion. Anand came back, won the next candidate cycle and lost a rematch to Carlsen, and Karyakin and Kairana were Carlsen's next opponents in a World Championship match. They won the candidates tournaments in Moscow and Berlin. So who will it be? Yekaterinburg 2020, the second half will start on Sunday, November 1st, and the winner will gain the right to challenge world champion Magnus Carlsen for the world title. As mentioned, this video is about the Curaçao 1962 candidates tournament won by Tigran Petrosyan. We're going to look at a game from that event, which I already covered in the countdown towards the first half of the candidates tournament. So to make the series complete, I will repost the video with the analysis of that game. It was a grueling event, a quadruple round robin, which means 28 games. 5 players from the Soviet Union: Petrosyan, Tal, Keres, Geller and Korchnoi. 2 Americans, Fischer and Benko, and 1 player from Czechoslovakia, Filip. Mikhail Tal dropped out after 21 rounds and had to be hospitalized. Petrosyan won the tournament and went on to challenge and defeat world champion Mikhail Botvinnik in 1963. And this is my all-time favorite chess picture. Mikhail Tal ignoring his breakfast in hospital. Bobby Fischer came to visit him. Bobby Fischer was the only participant who visited Tal in hospital. Let's play some chess. I'm going to show you a game from the 23rd round of this tournament. White is Tigran Petrosyan, black is Viktor Korchnoi. Both players were still in the running to win the event. It was played on the 16th of June 1962.
and I'm using the analysis from Grandmaster Jan Timman in his book on the match. Petrosyan opened with the c-pawn, c5, the English opening, knight f3, knight f6, d4, c takes, knight takes, g6, knight c3 and d5, and Timman calls this dubious. He says with reversed colors this setup is okay since the king's bishop has already been fianchettoed, although it won't yield any advantage then. But the missing tempo makes itself painfully felt. What Timman means is that the black bishop is not on g7 yet, which it would have been if this setup was played with colors reversed. Then the white bishop would already be on g2, as white always has an extra move, and then it is playable, but not with black. Bishop g5 by Petrosyan, the most energetic move, writes Timman, also played by Smyslov against Korchnoi in the USSR Championship in 1952, 10 years earlier, so Korchnoi had played this early d5 move before. Korchnoi took on c4, e3, and here bishop g7 was played by Korchnoi in the game against Smyslov in 1952. But in this game he plays queen a5, and Timman calls that a risky move as black is neglecting his development. Bishop takes f6, of course, writes Timman. White gives up the bishop pair on the correct assumption that his king's bishop, this one, will become very strong. Korchnoi recaptured. Bishop takes c4, regaining the pawn. And bishop b4, and as Timman writes, this move is also part of black's plan, but the plan just will not work out, as we'll see. Black is threatening to take on c3, he's attacking that with two pieces, it's only protected by the pawn, so rook c1 from Petrosyan, dealing with the threat of bishop takes c3, and here, according to Timman, black should have castled, then white castles, with the threat of knight d5, and Timman says this is also very unpleasant for black. But Korchnoi did not castle, he played a6. Petrosyan castled, unpins his knight on c3, knight d7 developing, and here knight d5 is given by Timman. He says it seemed almost impossible not to go for knight d5, after which black is roughly facing the same uphill struggle as in the game. But a3 was Petrosyan's choice instead, kicking the bishop. Timman says that bishop takes c3 is correct here, although it would do nothing to solve black's problems. He gives this variation, rook takes c3, then knight e5, attacking the bishop on c4, bishop drops back, black castles, and f4, and Timman says it's hard to see how black will manage to throw up a proper defensive line here. But after a3, Korchnoi did not take on c3, he went back to e7 with the bishop. b4 hitting the queen, and the queen went to e5, where, as we'll see, it will be harassed further. Queen takes a3, taking that pawn is not playable because of knight d5, with devastating results, says Timman. And indeed, knight c7 is a threat that will win the rook in the corner. Also, rook a1 is a threat that will win black's queen after queen b2 and rook a2. It's indeed devastating for black. So taking on a3 is not possible, queen e5 was played, and f4 forcing the queen back. You cannot take on e3 with check, because after king h1 there are immediate fatal consequences for black, writes Timman. Well, you don't need any variations here, it's easy to see that white has all his pieces ready to attack black's king, which is in the center. The queen is somewhat lost on e3. The pieces are not developed. This is not playable for black. So after f4, the queen went back to b8. And here a very nice move from Petrosyan. Bishop takes f7 check. A very nice sacrifice. The point is that it gives white control over the e6 square, explains Timman, as we'll see. Black took the piece, queen b3 check. If you go to g7 with the king, there is knight e6 check. And after king h6, there is rook f3, and the black king is going to be checkmated very soon, writes Timon. So after queen b3 check, Korchnoi went back to e8 with the king. He lost his castling rights, but he has won a piece. How is white going to prove that this piece sacrifice was correct? Knight d5, that move was hanging in the air for a long time. Bishop d6 and knight e6. As Timon says, the white knight pair penetrates with devastating force. b5 from Korchnoi, knight d c7 check with a fork, king e7, and now knight d4. The final blow, says Timon. There's no defense, the engine is already on +5. King f8 was played by Korchnoi, but he resigned after knight takes a8. Why did he resign? If you take back on a8, then there is queen e6, and black's position would have collapsed like a house of cards, writes Timon. For starters, the bishop is hanging. It can't go to c7 because then the rook takes. It can't go to b8 because then this bishop will be unprotected. So it has to go to e7. And then there is knight c6. Attacking the bishop again, and it cannot be defended a second time. And it has no safe squares to go to, so that bishop will be lost. After queen e6 he can also not play queen b8 to protect the bishop, because then there is knight c6 as well, hitting the queen. And after queen c7, saving the queen and keep the bishop protected, there is knight e7. Attacking the queen and attacking bishop c8. Twice with the knight and through the queen also with the rook. And it's all too much to defend for black. So after knight takes a8, Korchnoi resigned and Petrosyan had won an important game on his way to winning the event. A very poor game from Korchnoi, and I have to read you from Timon's book. People speculated that Korchnoi had lost this game on purpose, and it is true that at a first glance the course of the game would justify such dark suspicions. In reality, however, games in which one of the players has been bribed, although bribery isn't even the correct word here as no money had changed hands, look quite different. A well-known example is Taimanov against Matulovic in Palma de Mallorca 1971. Matulovic would get $400 if he lost. He arrived late in the playing hall, played rapidly and poorly, and read the newspaper in between moves. It's an entirely different thing to be beaten so painfully and comprehensively as in this game between two rivals who, in principle, had a beating of each other. I also think that this is not the only reason why we needn't doubt Korchnoi's words, that he had not understood the opening system properly. Strangely enough, he occasionally met with similar catastrophes in his later career, for example when he lost in 18 moves against the Spanish master Ricardo Calvo during the Havana Olympiad of 1966. So Timon does not think that Korchnoi threw this game, and I also would be very surprised. It doesn't seem to me in Korchnoi's character to ever contemplate that, let alone lose a game on purpose.
I hope you liked this video and that you'll keep counting down towards the resumption of the Candidates Tournament with me. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you like the video, if you like this series, then please share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.